Welcome, everybody. I'm Selena Rezvani, and you're joining Women and Work Culture. This is a live stream all about those positive habits and practices for boosting women's leadership. I am so excited to be here today with not only a dear friend, but also my fellow LinkedIn Learning instructor, Jodi Glickman. Hi, Jodi.
Hi, Selena.
So excited to have you today and hear your perspective on things. Also, a big hello to our community. Drop us a note and tell us where you're joining from. I already see Michelle in the Philly suburbs, Taruna saying hi, Christine from Brooklyn. Hi, Christine. Marissa saying, two of my fave LinkedIn Learning instructors. Thank you. And Joni in Santa Barbara. Awesome to see you all. Let me give all of you some of the scoop on Jodi. She's really awesome, and she's carved out such an important niche, so needed. She's CEO and founder of Great on the Job. And one of the main things Jodi does there is teach these practical, tactical communication skills, right? For professionals who want to lead and who want to advance in their careers. So good. She's also an author. She wrote a book called Great on the Job. Love your brand consistency, Jodi. So good. And she wrote, or she delivered a really insightful TEDx talk that you should all watch called Why You Should Stop Looking for Work That You Love. Really counterintuitive and a kind of fresh take on what fuels you at work. And on a personal note, Jodi and I met, I think 8 or 9 years ago, Jodi. A long time ago at the Forte Foundation conference. That's a conference that supports women MBAs. And I remember our rooms were right next to each other. We were presenting in. So I'm so grateful for that because you've been such a big inspiration and just, source of support and friendship. And you're awesome, Jodi Glickman. As we go, friends, send us your questions for Jodi. We're going to be talking today about developing a really killer elevator pitch. So what questions do you have around introducing yourself in a way, that puts you in the best possible light, right? Because we all want to make those good first impressions. Hi, Debbie from Duluth, by the way, and Chinmayanda from India. And Liliana from Chicago. So Jodi, let's dive right in and tell us, why is the elevator pitch so important?
Well, first of all, hi. And Selena, thank you for that lovely introduction and sending all the props and love right back at you. So I love that you're hosting this LinkedIn Live. This is super fun for me to be a part of. And thank you everyone for joining. And special shout out to Debbie from Duluth, because I usually spend a week in the North Woods of Wisconsin, right near Duluth. I'm not there now. But anyway, fun to see you all online. So why is the elevator pitch so important? Was that your question?
Yeah.
Here's a question that's really commonplace and so challenging, and people don't realize it's so challenging. And it's the question, tell me about yourself. And that question comes up all the time, and it's seemingly so benign, but it is so loaded. And so the elevator pitch or the personal pitch, or however you want to call it, is so important because we all know the facts and the data that you have 30 seconds to hook your listener or 10 seconds to get someone's attention. But really and truly, first impressions are made in the blink of an eye. And so having a really powerful, compelling, authentic pitch is critical. And most of us don't have that.
Yeah, you can almost feel the cringe, right? When you're not ready for that question. Tell me about yourself. It seems so innocent, right? But we can stumble, we can ramble, we can go on forever when we don't have a ready answer. We haven't thought it through.
And the place where most people go when you say, tell me about yourself, is they go backward. right?
Mm.
I've lived in Chicago for 12 years. I've worked at J&J for 8 years. I've been working in business development. I recently left my job, and they tell you about everything they've done in their background. And the truth is, with all due respect, ladies, on this call today, no one cares. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. No one cares about where you grew up and where you went to school and what you did for the past 7 years. What we actually care about is where you are now and what you're excited about going forward. And that's the whole real crux of the pitch in my mind, is that it really needs to be forward looking instead of backward looking. And that's counterintuitive to people. And yet it makes such a difference when you engage someone and talk about what you're working on, what you're excited about, what you're driving toward, what you're hoping to achieve. That's a much more powerful way to get someone to jump on board and engage with you.
Yeah, I love it. And you're getting some love from Taruna, who's saying this is really about how to say something that's quick and short, but gets the message across, right?
Totally.
Because nobody has time. You're competing with shorter attention spans, aren't you?
100%. So there was research in 2015 by Microsoft that said the average attention span of a human is 8 seconds, which is shorter than that of a goldfish, which I always sort of take issue with as a member of the human race. But I mean, 8 seconds, come on. And even if it's twice that or 3 times that, by the time you tell me about your undergraduate degree and where you lived and who you know and what you've done, I'm done listening. And so absolutely, you have a short amount of time to capture someone's attention. And the other thing is, when you ask yourself the question, what comes next? What am I looking forward to? What am I working toward? It's a much easier way to structure a conversation and get to the point quickly versus feeling like, do I start with undergrad? Do I start with grad school? Do I start with what I've been doing in the past 6 months or the past 6 years? So it keeps you from rambling.
I like that. And Sebastian saying, he has no working elevator pitch. So I think he'll be looking forward to hearing what you have to say and your framework, which we're going to share in a minute. But I want to zoom out the lens just really quickly. I've heard you say many times that this is a universal skill, that it's bigger than just kind of introducing yourself with savvy and smartly. What are some examples you could give us of other ways we could use this pitching skill?
Well, think about the next time you launch a call with a client and recognizing really early on, like, here's what we're here for today. Here's what we're hoping to accomplish. Here's why I've called everyone here, as opposed to, so the data shows that over the past 3 months, our numbers have gone slightly down, and I've done my research and I've talked to John and Lucia and Andreas, and we are believing that the next steps are, most people start with all of this sort of backstory, all of this information, and then they tell you why the heck we're in the meeting today. So I actually think about the pitch as my overarching guiding points for every conversation I have. And I know we'll go into the methodology, but I will often ask myself the question, what's my destination, or what is my punchline? Or I'll craft an email and I'll realize that the most important part of the email, and I do this for a living, right? I teach communication skills for a living. I'll realize that the most important point is at the bottom, and I'll say, oh, Jodi, you buried the lead, put it at the top. So as an effective communicator, as someone who is generous, generosity is a big part of my brand. And I always say, make it easy on your listener. If you lead with the punchline up front, no one has to wonder what we're talking about or why we've convened for a meeting today.
I love it. And it kind of creates something a little more aspirational. You set a tone that's, okay, I want to be part of making that vision come to life, that destination you want to come to, rather than just telling me hours of history and background.
Well, it also challenges you to really know why you're meeting with someone or what the conversation is about. I truly think there's a bit of a laziness factor. Challenging yourself to say, what is my destination, or what is my punchline, or what is the point of this conversation? You should do that work before you speak to whomever you're speaking with.
Yeah. Well, let's jump right in, because I see lots of interest from folks and a lot of reiterating, don't bury the lead. I know people want to know how to do that. One of the first things I remember learning in business school was great things come in threes. But
Totally.
that's a very smart way to package it, and I know you're a fellow MBA. Sure
Totally.
heard that. So tell us about your three-part framework.
Okay. So again, to the point that most people start by looking backward, the way that you want to kick off any pitch. And I use the term pitch pretty lightly. I'm not talking about a monologue where you're spewing out information about your whole life story, but I'm talking about a conversation where you're trying to engage with someone. The first thing is you start with your destination. Okay. You look forward. You tell me what you're excited about, what you're working towards, what you're doing now that's really impactful or important. Okay, so you lead with your destination and you lead by looking forward. Then you go to your backstory. And I call it your backstory and not your background because you're the author. You get to pick and choose
Mm-hmm.
what to focus on, what pieces of your background you want to include, which are relevant, and what pieces you leave out because they're not relevant. And then you tie it all up in a bow by connecting the dots. So it's destination, backstory, connect the dots. And I'm happy to talk you through each of those. But that way, when you sort of challenge yourself to say, what's my destination? What is my backstory? And how am I connecting the dots? You're not scripted. You just have different pieces of the puzzle that you sort of pull out of your pocket as needed.
I love it. It's so exciting because, you use the term don't bury the lead, right? You're really leading with what's going to excite somebody and what they can act on. They can
Yeah.
act on where you're headed. They can't act or do anything with your backstory. So to recap what Jodi said, destination first, where you're going, what you're excited about, where you're headed, then your backstory, and then connecting the dots, tying it all up so it makes sense, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is when you think about if you lead with your quote background, right? If I tell you that I went to University of Illinois or Northwestern University and you didn't, it's like, oh, if I worked in finance and you didn't, okay. So it's harder to connect with people on their background as opposed to saying, right, I run a leadership development firm that really is passionate about developing next generation talent. If you don't care about leadership development or next generation talent, it still allows you an opening to say, like, that's so interesting. Or what does next generation talent need to learn? Or actually, you know what? I work with so many young people. I'm in digital marketing or I'm in consumer products, but here's what I see. It really opens the door for people to connect with you more than on something in your background that's a static condition.
I love that. And I think it also kind of gives you a chance to live up every day to that mission you've set for yourself, right? Because you're speaking truth to it. You're saying it every day. This is what I stand for, or this is, where I'm headed.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a wonderful self-reminder, even outside of how you're communicating it to other people.
Well, the other thing is, Selena, I don't know about you, and I know you've done amazing things in your background, but I get sort of bored. If someone says to me, tell me about yourself, I'm not going to say, I graduated in 1995 from Northwestern University. I went into the Peace Corps for 2 years in Latin America. I lived in Curarrehue in a small town, and then I got hired at Goldman Sachs as an investment banker. People look at me like, okay, where is this all going?
Right.
I've done a lot of different things that really aren't relevant to the conversation today. I'm super happy to engage if it comes up. But a lot of times, the other thing I'll say is I was a Peace Corps volunteer. It was an amazing part of my life. I loved it. It helped shape me. When people hear it, sometimes they want to talk about Peace Corps, but that's not actually what I'm focused on today. And so it also can take you off course when someone says, oh, you worked at Deloitte. I'm trying to get hired at Deloitte. And you think that's not really why we're here today. We're not here to talk about Deloitte. We're here to talk about developing talent or building capacity of women across corporate America or whatever it is. But I think you're right. It makes it easier for you to sort of declare it and put a stake in the ground, and it makes it easier for people to connect with you.
Yeah, I love that last point because, I think we've established your pitch needs to be concise, right? It needs to lead with the headline or the punchline. But there's something else, which is it needs to be a little customized to the people in front of you, right? And And I think sometimes we're almost too loyal to the background and the roles we've had. We're like afraid it looks incomplete if we don't mention them all, but they're not all appropriate, right? Depending on who we're talking to.
No, and by the way, I'll say 100%. When I teach this, lots of business schools, Harvard Business School, I'm there every fall, right before recruiting starts, and we go through the pitch. And at the end, I always say the good news is the strategy is universal. It literally works every time. The bad news is it has to be customized. So different person, different pitch. Depending on who you're talking to, your destination changes or your backstory changes. You pull out different pieces of your story. This is not a one size fits all model.
I love it though. It really is usable in so many places. But think about that audience, really stand in their shoes and say what headline is going to be meaningful for them, right? We got a question from Anissa asking, what if this sounds like I'm bragging? And it makes me wonder, Jodi, if you see any kind of gender factor show up in this. You know, when people deliver or craft a pitch, are there things distinct to women that they should be thinking about or that you see?
You know, listen, I think we should all get better at being more braggadocious, if you will. Like when I'm in front of a live audience and I say, raise your hand if you're good at self-promoting, literally 2 out of 100 hands go up at most. Most of us do not do a good enough job at self-promoting. I do find it interesting that the question of how do I not come off as braggy more often comes from women because we're more reluctant to toot our own horns. But I would challenge you to say that when you talk about what you're excited about, what you're passionate about, what you're working towards, that doesn't come off as braggy or sounding like a jerk. That comes off as interesting, as compelling, as like, wow, tell me more. So it's not, I just cured cancer, me all by myself. It's I'm working, right? I'm working on new diagnostics to help children with early diagnosis of blah, blah, blah. And if someone said that to me, I'd be like, oh my God, you're amazing. Thank you for the work that you do. So I actually think that's not really the issue. It's funny because you said that question came from Anissa, I think, and Anissa has another question in here, which is, what if I don't know my destination? Which, if you don't mind, Selena, that's actually the bigger challenge. Most of us, and here's what this pitch methodology unravels or sheds light on. The real challenge with the pitch is that most people don't know what their destination is. We can speak all day long ad nauseum about our background. We can tell you where we've been and what we've done. We know that. We're experts in it. But the destination is the hardest thing to figure out. And so when you don't have a destination, that's why your pitch falls flat on its face. And within the context of interviewing for a job, if you don't have a really good reason why you want to work in product design at Dropbox, you're never getting the job. Forget if you're the most technically competent person out there. And if you don't have an interesting destination, sometimes it is that mirror reflecting you like, we're kind of stuck right now and I'm not passionate. I'm not excited. So how do I talk to other people in a way, right? It does kind of reveal to yourself like, well, what should I be working towards? And by the way, your pitch can be what you do in your community. It can be what you're doing with your children right now. It's not just professional. It really is just how are you having a conversation with someone and knowing what your goal of that conversation is too. I mean, that's maybe back. We didn't start with that, but what are you trying to sort of catch with your pitch? Are you trying to make a good impression? Are you trying to get a new job? Are you trying to build your network? You got to be really thoughtful about what the goal of the pitch is.
But do you think if you're kind of wondering, you're interviewing for that job, you know, maybe you like it, but you don't 100% love it. At a minimum, should somebody be trying to capture like the spark or the main thread in that job description that's exciting to them uniquely?
Yeah, you know, listen, I always say, like, if you're interviewing for me, you better love my product or my service or my culture. You better, because I'm not hiring you if you don't. And if you're not sure that you love my product or my service or my culture, fall in love with something so that when you do come in, really and truly, because here's the thing, I think you would agree with this too. I'd rather have you be in the driver's seat and make the decision whether or not to accept a position than not be in the driver's seat and have them decide whether or not you even get a chance to accept. So, and that's not about being, it's not about being inauthentic. It's saying, okay, there are things about this I'm not sure about, but here's what I can get my arms around. I love the collegiality of Deloitte, and I think it would be amazing to be part of that organization. Even if I'm not sure I want to be a management consultant, I really do think that the way they treat their employees or the way they focus on professional development, those are amazing characteristics. So yes, you need to find something that is really exciting to you and interesting on a genuine level. Otherwise, you've no chance of getting the job.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest takeaways that hit me hard that you just said was around kind of, if you don't like the term pitch, or it makes you think of car salesmen, and suddenly, you have this cringe factor about it,
Yeah.
change your frame. Like, change your frames. People want answers. People need answers, right? And you're giving them direction when you come up with a good pitch that's solid and informative.
Yeah, and even think about when you walk into, we're not walking into anything anymore, but when you pick up the phone, right, for the Zoom call with your team, and someone's excited about what the meeting's about, and think about how that changes the energy of the room versus like, we're here today to discuss Q3 results and we're not really doing so well. And everyone's thinking, oh my God, why am I in this meeting? As opposed to, here's where we are and here's the opportunities we're really excited about for Q4. And here's how we're going to bring you all on board to make sure that we hit our numbers, that we don't have to lay anyone off, and that we deal with Corona in a way that is impactful and effective to everyone on our team. You get buy-in, right? You really do, by talking about what's coming next and what you're excited about, what you're looking forward to, what you're driving toward, as opposed to sort of where we came from.
I love that. So that's a great prompt, I think, for all of us in your next meeting where you're leading a piece of it. Yeah. Try putting the destination first, not how we got here and the 7 points that allowed us to arrive at today, but where you're headed. I mean, I felt it just hearing you contrast those things, those two approaches. I felt excited about the second one. Jodi, just on a more personal note, I know it really fires you up to help people be confident and to tell their stories. But has this always come naturally to you, this ability to tell your story and do it well?
I think it has, and it's interesting. I didn't know it at the time, but I'll give you a couple of examples. So I was in business school, and I had worked at the Environmental Protection Agency after the Peace Corps. So EPA, trying to, in a voluntary program role where I was trying to get business and industry to be better environmental performers. And then I wound up getting hired, believe it or not, at ExxonMobil for my summer internship, which to environmentalists is kind of like the devil incarnate. Now, I respect and admire ExxonMobil, and I had a great summer experience. But I knew at the time, and the reason I got the job, by the way, I didn't interview. I met the treasurer at a networking event. He looked at me and he said, "Why aren't you on my interview schedule tomorrow?" And then he called me and gave me the job. Okay. So clearly I've had some ability to pitch myself into situations. But I knew before I got on a plane to go to Dallas for the summer, I remember thinking, if I walk in and introduce myself as the former Peace Corps volunteer / EPA policy analyst, people are going to look at me like I have 3 heads. And so I, in the moment, remember thinking, what's my story? Why am I going to ExxonMobil? And what my story was, and this was true, was that I was really interested in global energy policy. And I had seen it from the regulatory and public side and government side, but I wanted to see it from the private sector side. I wanted to see an energy producer and understand how the energy industry worked. And I drove a car and I used electricity and I consumed petrol. So I went in, and it's funny because at the time, I didn't know that I had a framework. It was only a decade later when I started my business, when I was like, I pitched my way. When I met the very senior executives at ExxonMobil, I started with, I'm really excited to be here. I'm super interested in global energy policy, and I come from the public sector. And so for me, this is an amazing opportunity to see the energy industry from the other way. And people were like, wow, we can't wait to talk to you, as opposed to you're so weird that you're sitting here as a Peace Corps volunteer working at ExxonMobil.
Well, and it's like you connected the dots for them. And I think that's so important, not asking people to use their imaginations, right? Because if you do, they're going to come up with 10 different versions that aren't necessarily what you want.
Correct.
And so I love that you almost made it feel like they were going to provide a service by giving you this rounded exposure and, a new opportunity. And that's actually a question that Lucic asked. Hi, Lucic. She asked, can your destination be servitude, like being of service, or is that too broad to say,
I think that's probably too broad. What do you care about, Lucic? What are you in service of or in service to? What gets you really excited? What drives you? I would say that if you said, I just want to be in the service of others, I would probably not believe you. I would think, well, okay, but like, really, who do you want to be in service of? So I'm going to challenge you to drill down on that one and think about, who do you want to be in service to, or what cause do you want to be in service of? And then how are you making that happen in your life?
Great. So really kind of get your niche clear before you walk in there, whether it's consumers or a certain piece of the market or female professionals, right? Whatever it may be. I think ears perk up when you hear their specificity.
And to be clear, there's no right or wrong answer. It is just being your authentic self. And part of this exercise, I think, of working on your pitch is really drilling down. And what I always say is, when someone says to me, so if you say to me, I want to be of service, I will say, why? And to who? I'm going to drill down. I'm going to ask you questions. I want to go into investment banking. I'll say, why? And they say, because I love the capital markets. And I'll say, why? And then sometimes they don't have another answer. Like, you really need to drill down. You really need to know your why. Why is it this is what you were meant to do? Why is this what you want to do? Why is this what you're excited about doing? Ask yourself those tough questions so that when the conversation happens in real time, you are pretty laser focused.
I love it. Do that root cause analysis, right? Kind of get to the central kernel of why you care about it, why you're excited, why you'll be of service. I want to ask you, Jodi, just in our COVID world of work, right? Yeah. One of our community members I know is interviewing right now, doing it over video conferencing, right? Yeah. How does that interface kind of affect our ability to pitch? Is there anything you think we should be watching for?
Well, that's like a whole nother animal that you and I could spend days on around executive presence. And you are the gold standard and you have a course on executive presence. And I spend a lot of time talking about it and teaching it. What I think of as the pitch is the what, right? It's the what you say. And then your presence is how you say it and how you show up every day. You're going to have a lot of confidence when you really feel good about your pitch. But let's be clear, if you deliver your pitch and you're looking over here, or you're slumped over, or you're not making eye contact, I'm not buying it. So as you well know, Selena, so much of this is about, and I'm conscious I have a twirly chair here, which I don't like, right? Get yourself, Selena is like so well in her spot. Oh, you do too, but you haven't moved. Well, it's about looking into my little green dot, because I have a MacBook Air. It's about making sure your frame, we can see your whole body, we can see your gesturing. It's about putting yourself in a position of power and confidence before the interview, so you're not staring at your resume and then, hi, how are you? And you have to be this person who doesn't feel super confident. So that's a whole nother set of challenges. But yes, practicing, getting on camera, making sure you like the way you look and sound, that's going to be really important as a baseline.
I love that. Really being mindful of this box you're in, using it to your advantage, right? Totally. Like maximizing what you can do in that space.
And I just want to interject for everyone on the line. Look at Selena and how beautiful she looks in her really pretty backdrop and your blue top, and the fact that we can see like your camera is probably really propped up. That's all deliberate, gang, right? That is not an accident that Selena looks great on her LinkedIn Live session. And I tried to do the best I could and sort of in a makeshift way. But that makes a big difference.
Well, thank you. That's very sweet, but it's true. If you're not going to get the job for some reason, it's not going to be because people were distracted by your background or they couldn't get you to kind of look them in the eye, right? And I think that's so important. Rule out what you can rule out. You
Yeah.
can rule out this little box. You can make it so it's not distracting, so that it's really easy to focus on your words.
And please let me say this. Get a virtual background if yours doesn't look good. I mean, just use Zoom, pick a virtual background, looks nice. No one should be worried or distracted by what's in the background. Just take that off the table for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's great. Honestly, I've seen people who do a great job and it's like a simple white wall behind them. I think simple is better than the opposite, right? Where it feels like chaos.
Totally.
Jodi, I know we only have like a moment left, but just for that beginner who's just starting to kind of talk about themselves with authenticity and to, speak with confidence about their backstory, any first step they could take to get better at that or practice that?
Well, one of the things that I always say, so the backstory piece of the puzzle is based on two things, either your relevant experience, or your transferable skills. And you have transferable skills, every single one of you. You have things that you're great at just because that's the way you're wired, whether it's big picture thinking, whether it's being great with numbers and details, whether it's being calm under pressure, whether it's being really inquisitive, whatever it is, you bring skills and talent to the table, no matter what your experience is, no matter how green or new you are, by virtue of being you. So recognize that whatever it is you want to do going forward, that's the hard part, is figuring out your destination. You have skills in your background that you can draw on and that you can speak to. So don't walk in feeling less than. Walk in acknowledging that this is what I want to do, and I might not have any experience doing it, but I am great at this, and that's going to help me. And that's the way I pitched myself into a job at Goldman Sachs as an investment banker.
Beautiful. I love it. So don't underemphasize what you bring to the table and overemphasize what everybody else brings.
Yeah.
You have something that's going to translate and matter at that next place. Jodi, this has been so awesome. It strikes me that so many of the people that come to you, they're already smart. They're already incredibly talented, but you're helping them kind of unlock their expertise so they can express it and so they can share it. And that's such a beautiful gift. So thank you for.
Thank you, Selena. This was so fun. Could talk to you all day.
It's awesome to watch. Well, in the show notes, you're going to see links to Jodi's LinkedIn Learning course on pitching, which is incredibly popular. And she just wrapped this week a new course, so you should keep your eyes out for that. You'll also see links to her book, her website, so you can learn more about her. And I hope you'll stay in touch with me too. Check out my LinkedIn Learning courses on building that confidence, that executive presence, and sign up for my newsletter if you haven't at selenarezvani.com/sign up. I want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you, Jodi, and our incredible community for your questions. Stay healthy, stay well, and go forth and crush those pitches. Thank you.